So today is November 21st, 2025. And it's a brief reflection in my diary, I guess, on my Native American history, as well as my Black Seminole history, and my African Black American history. That being said, my uncle, Rodney Mings, had me study my grandfather's Black Seminole history from Florida since I was like 5 or 6 years old. Gave me all the books. So it's interesting how my complexion changes, like in the summer, fall or summer and spring, I'm like reddish brown, but my complexion changes to a light brown when it gets closer to winter. So that's why you see this complexion now. But if you look at any other videos, you'll see my complexion is a little bit darker. That being said, my grandfather, Black Seminole Indian from Florida, my grandmother, Cherokee Indian from Oklahoma. And she took my uncles and my father and my aunts up to Michigan when she divorced. But when she died here in Michigan when I was very young, my older brothers and sisters saw the funeral. I was too young. But a lot of Native Americans with their headpieces came to the funeral here in Detroit. That being said, my mother's family is from Alabama. So if you just study the history of the Seminole Indian and the Indian Civil War with the slave owners, before you ever heard about Harriet Tubman or whatever, before the migration to the north, the Black Seminole Indians migrated to Oklahoma from Florida after their Civil War and funded by the Spanish Empire at that time period, and ended up in Mexico, where they have still land to this day in Mexico City. So it's the irony of my security clearances through the years, the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, and doing all the battery cells for General Motors to Saltillo, Mexico, but also working at the airport, Willow Run Airport, with the Willow Run ladies, doing the emergency freight through aircrafts to Saltillo, to Chihuahua, etc. in Mexico. When America got El Chapo's son, I was working at the airport, literally doing emergency freight for John Deere, Boeing, Chrysler, etc. to Mexico at that time period. And yeah, it was crazy when they shut down the city when they got El Chapo's son. I was like, damn, But even before that, Living International, Toronto, Canada, the Pope, before he died, apologized to Native Americans in Canada due to the fact that the schools and what they did and etc. But I was moving all Tesla, Elon Musk freight from California to his home base in Texas after that, but also to Hong Kong and China. And most people didn't know that most of his big factories were in China. So why the EV market is so tremendous in China and why they're defeating Europe, even though Elon hooked up with Germany, built a plant in Germany. Well, he was giving all this stuff to China at that time period under the Obama years. That's the irony. And that's why it's so funny, him and Trump are buddy. So that's my 2 cents today, a brief history of Black Seminole Indian, Cherokee Indian, and African American blessings through my years. At 40 years old, born January 3rd, 1985, and my first security clearance was through the United States Navy Aviation Program because of my agent, very high up in the military, and my cousin that was very high up in the Pentagon when I was at Howard University and graduated. True blessings. And now the coach actually took me to Ball State before I transferred to Howard. Eric Lewis, the son of Sherman Lewis from Michigan State, actually is now defensive coordinator at the Naval Academy. Oh, and another 2 cents. The Naval Academy recruited me in high school. I wanted to go party in college. And that's the irony of that. They still got my booty. They still got me to join. Brief in the Michigan Army National Guard, non-dishonorable discharge, and just true blessings. True blessings.